It's August 9th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Typhoon Khanun making its way to the Korean peninsula. The tropical storm is expected to make a landfall on the country's southeast coast on Thursday morning before moving up the peninsula. The government raised the typhoon alert level to the highest serious. Thousands of Scout members at the Saemangeum World Scout Jamboree have resettled at their new homes in 8 different regions. The Jamboree K-pop concert and the closing ceremony will take place at the Seoul World Cup Stadium this Friday. South Korea's SK hynix has showcased samples of the world's first 321-layer NAND, becoming the first in the industry to unveil progress on the development of a NAND chip with more than 300 layers in detail. Typhoon Khanun is approaching the Korean peninsula and is set to have the entire country under its influence by tonight. And South Korea is now bracing for the storm, raising the typhoon alert level to the highest level. Kim Mo-kyun starts us off.
Typhoon Khanun is expected to make landfall on South Korea's southern coast as early as late Wednesday and proceed northward to North Korea, putting the entire peninsula under its influence through Saturday. The Korean Meteorological Administration says Khanun, which was heading north from the waters of Japan's Kagoshima as of Tuesday, is expected to first reach waters off South Korea's southernmost Jeju Island at 9 p.m. Wednesday. Weather experts say once it makes landfall, the typhoon may remain very strong in intensity, with its central pressure forecast at 970 hectopascals and maximum wind speeds of up to 126 kilometers per hour. It also expected to dump downpours of up to 500 milliliters nationwide. Weather agencies worldwide have forecast the typhoon to move towards the west as it ascends, which means there's a high chance of it directly affecting the capital region by late Thursday. President Yoon held an emergency meeting with the heads of related ministries, calling for them to do all they can to prepare for the typhoon, stressing that such efforts must center on preventing casualties. He added that the blind spots seen in previous disastrous situations should never occur again, and preemptive measures should be key to minimizing damage. Government authorities also held a Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters meeting on Tuesday to discuss prevention measures. It raised its 4-tier typhoon alert level to the highest serious and initiated a Level 3 emergency operation for the Disaster Response Headquarters, which is also the highest. Officials called for all-out measures and regular checks on areas and facilities vulnerable to the rain, such as reservoirs, riversides, and underground parking lots. In the event of a flood, support will also be given to people with disabilities and senior citizens who live alone. The government will keep citizens aware of necessary forecasts regarding the typhoon and provide appropriate instructions through text messages and public broadcasts. As of 3 p.m. Tuesday, a typhoon advisory has been issued in coastal areas surrounding Jeju Island, and the weather agency forecasts that warnings could expand to upper parts of the country by Thursday. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
In fact, over in Japan, Typhoon Khanun is already leaving scars there, putting public transport on hold in the southern island of Kyushu. According to Japan's weather authorities, Khanun is over the sea 110 kilometers southwest of Kagoshima Prefecture as of Wednesday morning and is slowly moving northwest. Up to 300 millimeters of heavy rain is forecasted in the region, along with a strong wind. As a result, JR Kyushu Railway Company has stopped the operation of its Shinkansen bullet train between Kumamoto and Kagoshima, and dozens of bus services and flights have been canceled as of Tuesday. Participants of the World Scout Jamboree are now making themselves comfortable in their new homes after evacuating from Saemangeum over typhoon fears. And new adventures and events lie ahead, including a K-pop concert here in Seoul. Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
A bus arrives and scouts from Bulgaria disembark. They left the Saemangeum campsite earlier in the day, bound for Sejong City. After a brief welcome ceremony at City Hall, a commemorative photo is taken in front of the statue of King Sejong the Great. Before checking out other cultural activities, the Scout members enjoy a nice Korean meal.
Although I'm not very used to spicy food, it is quite welcoming. I really enjoy it.
After spending most of the World Scout Jamboree in the intense heat, Scout members are enjoying fun cultural activities indoors where it's nice and cool. And there's a wide range of activities the Scouts can enjoy, whether it be indoor rock climbing, creating figurines using a 3D pen, or even learning to make popular Korean dishes like tteokbokki.
But here in Sejong City, it's really nice. We really like it. All of the kids are experiencing very nice things here. So thank you for your really nice accommodating us here.
After leaving Saemangeum, some 10,000 Scouts arrived in the Chungcheongdo province region. They will be staying in dormitories, temples, and corporate training centers, away from the intense heat and the typhoon that's headed towards Korea.
It's nice, cool, comfortable, and I'm really happy with this place. I'm thankful for staying here. It's amazing. Finally get to rest my back a bit.
And potentially, a highlight for many of the young Scouts is the upcoming K-pop concert that will now go ahead at the Seoul World Cup Stadium this Friday. According to the Culture Ministry on Tuesday, the decision to move the concert from Jeonju World Cup Stadium was made with the stadium's proximity to the Jamboree participants' new accommodation and security in mind. The Seoul World Cup Stadium will host both the K-pop concert and the closing ceremony, with some of the biggest K-pop artists scheduled to perform. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And those who pulled out of Jamboree early because of the extreme heat are still carrying on with activities here in the country. Like these British Scout members are learning about the sacrifices made during the Korean War. Choi Min-jang met them.
A variety of tourism programs are being put on for World Scout Jamboree participants who decided to leave the Saemangeum camping site located on South Korea's west coast. As one of the alternative programs, the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs on Tuesday launched a 3-day peace camp for British Scouts so that they can still get the most out of their time in South Korea. Around 1,200 British Scouts are participating in the program until Thursday, where they will learn about the contribution of British soldiers who fought in the Korean War. Their first stop is Gloucester Hill Memorial Park in Paju. It was built in memory of the British soldiers who fought and died during the Battle of the Imjin River in 1951. Putting aside their disappointment, the Scouts pay tribute to their British military service members who sacrificed their lives during the Korean War.
It's an honour to be here. I'm speechless, to be honest with you, but it's an absolute honour to be here and to represent the UK as well. It's to be amazing.
I think it's great being able to experience this Korean culture, and it's nice to learn about it and see how the Koreans feel about it and see our involvement in it.
The program meant a lot to the unit leader, as his grandfather actually fought in the Korean War.
Very emotional for me because he died last year, and also he was the first Scouter in our family. So to come to Korea with the Scouts and to be able to do this, incredibly special.
The Jamboree members also took a tour of the War Memorial of Korea and visited Seoul National Cemetery. The Veterans Minister said he hopes that the program will be a precious opportunity for the young British Scouts to experience South Korea, a country that was built through the sacrifice and dedication of troops 70 years ago. Nearly 4,500 British Scouts, the largest group of all the Scout contingents currently visiting South Korea, left the Jamboree site in Saemangeum for Seoul over the weekend, amid mounting safety concerns stemming from a sweltering heatwave and the oncoming typhoon. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
South Korea secured a current account surplus in June for the second straight month. Now, based on the report, that is because the drop in imports was greater than the rate for exports. Now, what does that mean? Let's turn to Professor Shin Myung-gyu this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
First off, could you explain the latest figure to our viewers? I mean, what does it mean to say the country logged a current account surplus for 2 months in a row?
Oh, well, let me first point out the exact number. Export has declined by about 7%, while import has declined by 12% a year ago, and hence we could see a Krenocon surplus in June. In the sense that there have been Krenocon surplus for 2 consecutive months, this is good. However, it might be actually not a good sign for Korea. If the economy is in the recession, the aggregate activity slows down. In a country like South Korea, which heavily depend on export, recession implies lower demand for intermediate goods imported from foreign countries, while demand for final goods exported to foreign countries. Thus, contrary to the usual belief or idea that the current surplus is usually a good sign for the Korean economy, we might think that this is kind of the negative signal on the Korean economy from the fact that there was a greater decline in imports than the export, so that current account was surplus. This is what is usually called to be the recessionary trade surplus.
I see. Then, Professor Shim, let's also talk about the goods balance. Now, that's the way of tracking imports and exports, right? That saw a surplus of $3.98 billion and also recording a surplus for the 3rd consecutive month. Now, what's behind the positive figures this time then?
At the first glance, having goods balance surplus for the last 3 months seemed to be good. Again, however, positive figure is not always good news, especially for Korea. If the good balance is positive because there was a positive growth of exports and it dominates that of imports, then we can say that it is really a good sign, especially for Korea, which is a small economy. However, if you look at the data, this is actually not the case. During the first half of this year, growth rate of export has been less than 6%, and the growth rate was even lower than minus 10% for 4 months. So import has showed a negative growth, but the size was smaller than that of exports, and hence we have observed goods balance deficit for most of the first half of the year. In sum, I'm not so sure if the positive figures are good signs for the Korean economy at this point. I think we need to have to wait until we receive more observations to conclude whether these positive figures are good signs or negative signs for South Korea.
Right, you've just mentioned the overall current account surplus for the first half of the year. That came to around $2.4 billion. Now, that's 1/10 of the figure that was recorded a year ago, right? That's a huge fraction. Now, why is that, Professor?
Oh, well, yes. It seems to be somewhat disappointing that the current account surplus is only 1/10 of that year ago at the first glance. The goods balance was mostly in deficit during the first half of this year, mainly due to the heightened uncertainty around the world and lower demand due to the continued heightened contractionary monetary policy that drags down the global growth. Also, more overseas trips due to the endemic, which results in service balance deficit, was also the reason why Korea had much smaller surplus compared to the last year. In particular, the service balance deficit became twice of that in the last year. However, let me also point out that the usual expectation on the current account this year was negative. For example, both KDI and the Bank of Korea, which are two of the most important institutions that provide forecasts on the Korean economy, expected that Korea will have the current account deficit during the first half of 2023. So while I do not know if my comments really receives a concern on the Korean economy, but actually this is not that bad compared to what we have expected.
Now, Professor Shim, we still have a good 5 months to go for 2023. What's your outlook for the current account in the latter half of the year then?
For that, my expectation on the current account for the last half of this year is not that positive for the following reasons. First of all, the export has not fully recovered, even though it would have benefited from the depreciation of Korean won compared to the US these days. If domestic currency is valued lower than usual, suppose we need more won to get the same amount of dollar, Korean exporting firms would have benefited from that situation because they have competitive power in terms of the prices. This is supported by the historically higher price level of the interest rate gap between Korea and the US. However, such a large interest rate gap cannot be sustained, which is potentially have the negative impact on the competitiveness of exporters in Korea, and thus current account surplus might not be that prolonged. Second, the tightened monetary policy in the US and other advanced economies like European countries have made it difficult to export due to lower demand. And I think this trend will not change that much because, for the last year, because the Russian invasion on Ukraine will not end that soon. And also the global economy can further decline due to the prolonged regime for the high interest rate. And it seems like the barriers to export increase, such as the IRA.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Professor Shim. You have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
SK hynix has revealed the world's highest 321-layer NAND chip sample. The South Korean tech firm displayed its 4D NAND flash development sample at the Flash Memory Summit 2023 held in Santa Clara on Tuesday local time. Now, the company also shared plans to begin producing the chip in 2025, making it the first chipmaker to provide a timeline for the development of a NAND with more than 300 layers. NAND flash chips are a type of semiconductor used to store information on electronic devices such as PCs and smartphones. Now, the key to this technology is to stack more cells like a tall building to increase storage. Returning early from his summer vacation, President Yoon chaired a meeting on revamping South Korea's military force to deter any attack from North Korea. Our Oh Soo-young tells us more.
Faced with unprecedented danger from a nuclear North Korea, President Yoon says South Korea must strengthen its military power, including through offensive drone capabilities, to thwart and deter any form of attack. Presiding over a meeting of the Defense Innovation Committee on Tuesday, Yoon said that North Korea is quickly developing asymmetric capabilities in nuclear weapons, missiles, cyberspace and unmanned aerial vehicles, making it the South's utmost priority to revamp its military strategy and operational concepts.
우리 군의 군사 전략은 북한의 핵 미사일 위협을 억제하고 북한의 핵 미사일 도발 시 한미 동맹의 즉각적이고 압도적인 대응을 통해 위협의 근원을 조기에 제거할 수 있도록 수립되어야 할 것입니다.
Yoon said the South Korean military must be transformed into a strong, formidable force, particularly with a drones operation command to be launched next month. Pyongyang in December last year flew 5 drones across the inter-Korean border, with one device even breaching the no-fly zone surrounding the presidential office in central Seoul. Since then, the military has scrambled to set up a drone command under the president's orders, with a law passed in June to establish the body, which will execute both defensive and offensive military operations. Yoon highlighted the effective use of the military budget in the country's mid-term defense plan to best reinforce the country's deterrence and response to North Korea's threats. This comes as the Defense Innovation Committee's Vice Chair, retired 4-star General Kim Kwan-jin, warned that North Korea's nuclear capabilities make today the most dangerous point in time since the 1950-53 Korean War. making it necessary to prepare for various scenarios involving Pyongyang's use of nuclear weapons. Countermeasures discussed included prioritizing the strengthening of Seoul's three-axis system to prevent, preempt, defend and retaliate against North Korea's attacks, and the deployment of US strategic nuclear assets to the Korean peninsula. Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Kim Seung-yeom pledged to develop plans and procedures to integrate the South's conventional capabilities and the United States' extended deterrence. This marks the committee's second meeting since its launch in May, tasked with fostering defense innovation, promoting public and private cooperation, and securing a budget to build a stronger military based on cutting-edge technologies. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Pentagon says it's concerned about the possibility of arms deal between North Korea and Russia, as a recent visit by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu late last month to Pyongyang may indicate increased military cooperation. According to Pentagon Deputy Spokesperson Sabrina Singh at a daily press briefing on Tuesday, Washington has concerns that North Korea might be considering the sale of ammunition to Russia. She added that any arms deal between Pyongyang and Moscow would violate UN Security Council resolutions. She also warned that any country planning to engage in any illegal arms deal with the North would face consequences.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Niger, where coup leaders have refused to let a senior United States diplomat meet with the nation's ousted president. U.S. Acting Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Nuland was denied access to ousted President Mohamed Bazoum on Monday. She said she also stressed U.S. concern for the welfare of Mr. Bazoum, who she said was being detained with his wife and son. She held 2 hours of talks with leaders of the military takeover in the capital of Niamey. Nuland was also unable to pressure the military leaders to return the country to civilian rule. Niger stands to lose U.S. assistance and military aid if Washington determines that its elected government was toppled using unconstitutional means. The U.S. has troops stationed in Niger, serving as a counter-terrorist outpost in West Africa. Now in Pakistan, jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been banned from holding political office for the next 5 years, and he will lose his seat as an MP in Parliament. And this follows an announcement by the country's election commission on Tuesday. It comes days after Khan was sentenced to 3 years in prison for illegally selling state gifts during his tenure as PM. But Khan says the charges are politically motivated, something the government has denied. The former star cricket player was elected PM in 2018 but was ousted from the position in April last year after losing a no-confidence vote. A number of destructive thunderstorms across the eastern United States has left at least 2 dead, over 1 million without power, and grounded thousands of flights. From Monday, these storms sent trees flying into homes, tore roofs off buildings, and down power lines, affecting people across 11 states. Now, according to reports, a 28-year-old man was killed in Alabama after being struck by lightning, and a 15-year-old boy was killed in South Carolina after a large tree fell on him. Now, the storms were part of a weather system spanning from Georgia to New York State. At least 1 tornado was confirmed in Syracuse, but caused little damage. The system has since moved off the New Jersey coast, but experts warn the region could see excessive rainfall. And finally, Colombia have reached the quarterfinals of the 2023 Women's World Cup for the first time after beating Jamaica 1-0. The South American side won a tense match in Melbourne on Tuesday after Catalina Uzmer found the back of the net in the 51st minute. It was the first goal that Jamaica have conceded in the tournament. France also made it through to the quarterfinals after a dominating 4-0 win over Morocco. The world number 3 ranked team eased through to the final 8, scoring 3 goals in the first half in Adelaide. Colombia will face European champions England, while France will go up against World Cup co-hosts Australia.
Good morning. Severe tropical storm Khanun is forecast to make a direct landfall in South Korea. Right now, it's moving north over waters off the southwest of Kagoshima in Japan. Then it will arrive on Korea's south coast by early tomorrow, continuing to move northwards without changing its course. As it sweeps overland, the entire country will be under the typhoon's influence, with more typhoon-related weather alerts to be issued. Southeast regions are already seeing rain, and east of Gangwon-do province will get torrential rain of more than 600 millimeters, and Jeju and Jeollado provinces to see more than 300 millimeters. The capital will see rain from tonight. The storm will produce wind gusts of 15 to 35 meters per second across the Korean peninsula into Thursday, strong enough to down trees and cause power outages. Please stay on high alert. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Korea time. Stay safe wherever you are.